Here on Travel Dash, we don't often highlight urban areas and cities, but New Haven, Connecticut, the state's third biggest city with a metro population of just over 500,000, is one of the few that is naturally very significant. And that's because of what I'll be calling the rock parks. See, separate from the Appalachian mountain range, which really only touches the northwest corner of Connecticut, you have several towering rock formations disguised as mountains, and the three I'll be highlighting in this video coincidentally surround the city's center, making them very accessible. They formed 175 million years ago when Pangaea broke apart, then magma cooled underground and was pushed to the surface by continental movement to expose igneous rock. In the following hundreds of millions of years, these rocks were shaped into their present form, giving them that mountainous appearance. The geology here reminds me a lot of what can sometimes be found in southern Appalachia, most notably Stone Mountain Park in Georgia, which is the closest comparison I can make, seeing as it's also right outside of a prominent city in Atlanta. I visit these three rock parks across a day and a half in New Haven, which also included some fun culinary experiences, namely pizza, since New Haven is widely considered the pizza capital of the United States. I'd fuel myself with a classic tomato pie before getting started at Sally's Pizza, one of the three major pizza joints in the city alongside Frank Pepe's and Modern. I always recommended those heading out here arriving at any one of them as soon as they open, as otherwise you'll find yourself waiting upwards of an hour for a table. Another way to avoid that is you could order takeout if you wanted, however these spots are really kind of interesting inside with lots of history for visitors to read up on the walls. What makes New Haven style pizza distinct is it tends to be drier and thinner than, but closely related to, traditional New York style pizza, which is similarly renowned for its taste and texture. It's unreal how delicious these are, you really can't go wrong with any of the big three. Though the next best thing I'd heard was Zupardi's Pizza in West Haven, which I tried on the same trip and also loved, even if it lacks the thinness of what I'd had at Sally's. In any case, to delve into the rock parks, I'll be going west to east for simplicity. Probably the least visited of the three is the appropriately named West Rock, located in West Rock Ridge State Park. This is a public recreation area spanning nearly 1,700 acres, which is wildly impressive given its close proximity to New Haven. Obviously, the state park is named for the 700-foot rock formation and corresponding ridge, which is especially exposed here compared to the other parks. On a previous visit to New Haven, I'd actually been to West Rock before, but I only got to check out the main overlook, which I'll get to later. This time, I really took the opportunity to get a good feel for the place by conquering more than 5 miles worth of hiking. Alright, first stop today, we're at West Rock Ridge State Park. You can just drive up to an overlook if you want to get this park done really quick. I'm going the extra mile by hiking around Lake Wintergreen, which is in a separate portion of the park, and then I'm going to hike up the rock all the way to that overlook, just for fun. I started at the Lake Wintergreen trailhead found in the northern part of the park and navigated the Regicides Trail up to the top of the mountain and then back down to get some vantages of Lake Wintergreen, since the route bypasses it completely unless you make it into a loop, which I imagine most people would do. But I strayed away from the norm because I then continued south until I hit the West Rock overlook, where I was then picked up. So because of my circumstances, I was able to make this a point-to-point hike, which I actually think is an underrated option for those visiting. To touch on the Regicides portion first, you begin by passing by a small pond connected to Lake Wintergreen. It was quite scenic, particularly due to the fall foliage. I just so happened to time this close to southern Connecticut's peak color period, and though it was a less than stellar year due to droughts in the summer, I still never get tired of seeing those yellows, oranges, and reds. Following this, you'll come up on a trail split where you'll decide to walk alongside the lake or climb the mountain, whichever experience you so desire. There is a specific reason why I chose the latter, which you'll have to stick around to find out about, but first comes the steepest section of any trail in this video, 200 feet of elevation gain in just 0.2 miles. It's nothing all too insane if you're a seasoned hiker, but it will get you to sweat a little without question. But then once you make it to the top, you'll realize how freakishly high you are, from occasional openings in the trees. Oftentimes you'll be standing on these rocks that at first seem to be gradually making their way down to the valley, but as you proceed along the trail, they start to get noticeably steeper. Another compliment to the scenery is this large pond out in the distance, which is pleasant but seemed to be surrounded on one side by development and construction, no doubt taking away from the immersion. That's because the pond is actually not within state park boundaries. But then seemingly out of nowhere, the trail more or less terminates at this overlook, which has no signs or guardrails, nothing like that. It's just this exposed area that reveals probably the steepest segment of any of the three rocks near New Haven. The sheer vertical descent is terrifying and the very definition of a cliff, like this isn't any old drop-off. I was really taken aback by how dramatic this was, and in the same view is also that pond once more, so all around it's quite the spot. From here, I took a connector trail down to Lake Wintergreen, a shortcut if you will, which surprisingly didn't feel very steep, so there's a testament to how much more strenuous it is going uphill while hiking at large, even if it's the exact same terrain you're descending. Now, Lake Wintergreen is quite the treat, seeing as it's in a rock park and has nothing to do with the geology that formed these mountains. Just so I could see more of it, I walked halfway around its perimeter to the Lake Wintergreen Dam. Yes, it is dammed in, but who's surprised, this is a city. The backdrop consisting of the hill making up one side of West Rock isn't only beautiful, but also demonstrates the striking contrast between this and the precipice on the other end. Most would then continue until they looped back to the parking lot, but West Rock Ridge State Park has a relatively complex network of trails connecting everything, so I made my way back into the woods and carried on. For whatever reason, the main access road heading up to the overlook was closed that day, so eventually when the trail I was on intersected with it, I vouched to walk up that instead since it was easier. The fall colors were popping off and so serene, giving me the motivation I needed to make my way back to the top of West Rock. Along the way, I also passed by the Judge's Cave, which is this interesting cluster of rocks that form a small passageway for visitors to climb through. But really, it's the history that steals the spotlight, as back in the 17th century, a bunch of judges ordered King Charles I to death, and then one thing led to another, and they themselves were ordered to death. That a few of the judges who weren't caught fled to New Haven, Connecticut, and hid in the wilderness. More specifically, this cave. Pretty random and wild stuff that I didn't even know about until after my visit. Once I finished exploring the cave for 5 to 10 minutes, I proceeded to what is officially named the South Overlook, and it's this awesome panoramic viewpoint highlighting West New Haven and the valley it's in, which stood out because of the various colored trees dotting the landscape. You can also spot New Haven's skyline out in the distance, which is actually kind of underrated considering its population size. And another amazing detail is if you look carefully, East Rock is on the other side of town, and that's visible too. You can really see just how prominent those cliffs are. The only thing that holds this overlook back relative to the others are the trees and bushes, which partially block the view. I'm sure that hasn't really been noticeable to you guys though, since I've been meticulously showing shots that weren't as obstructed, taking advantage of small openings and spur trails and things like that. Oh, and one other thing I have to note is there is a summit trail that you can take to get here from just the base of the rock formation, which is an excellent view in and of itself, so it's the final spot in the park I have to recommend you go see. Obviously, most will be driving between the two spots though, but it's an option you should keep in mind as it's a pretty neat connector trail. Ameren Field seemed to me like it was an abandoned baseball field or something, so that was certainly pretty weird, but regardless, this is the single best base view in any of the 3 rock parks, and it isn't even close. The thing absolutely towers above you, and the rock making it up almost up here like dominoes with that slight slant. It's wild not a lot of people seem to know about this spot. Perhaps it's because it isn't kept up and maintained anymore, but I'd still put it up there as one of New Haven's biggest hidden gems. Although I wouldn't personally say anything about West Rock Ridge State Park is outstanding natural scenery wise, it has a good variety, definitely more variety than any of the other parks in the area, and so for that reason, I think it's quite the special place, especially given how close it is to the city center of New Haven. Up next, we'll be highlighting Sleeping Giant State Park, the furthest rock park from New Haven City Center, found 20 minutes north in Hamden. It gets its name from its distinctive mountain ridge that resembles a reclining giant, which can best be seen from nearby highways. Because of its location slightly further north, fall foliage was peaking at Sleeping Giant State Park, and while here I saw some of the most vibrant trees I'd seen in a while. From the summit of the hike we'd be conquering, there was hardly any green to be seen at all. Speaking of which, the trail at hand is called the Sleeping Giant Tower Trail, which spans 3.1 miles and packs in 597 feet of elevation gain. The gradual ascent up Sleeping Giant terminates near the summit of Mount Carmel at 739 feet high, making it the highest point in any of the rock parks near New Haven. Though most of the hike takes place within the trees, there are a few points of interest, including the section about a quarter of the way in, where you can look up at the rock forming the Sleeping Giant's head. Then roughly 3/4 of the way in, there's a few openings in the trees that allow for views of hills surrounding the formation. And finally, one of the state park's defining characteristics is a Roman-esque lookout tower built in 1936. When you first see it, it appears as though it's a castle perched atop a hill, and it's actually vital for this vista to be as emphatic as it is. At its base, you're completely surrounded by trees, save for some spur trails to various rock ledges. But once you head inside the tower, you'll be greeted by a spiral staircase to the top, and along the way, there is a surprising amount of levels to it, each complete with its own windows. I really appreciated the design of this, especially since it's rare you see pieces of architecture such as this built into scenic areas. Despite its distance from downtown New Haven, you're still able to appreciate the skyline from this point in Sleeping Giant State Park, though it was hidden in the shadows because of some cloud cover. Sleeping Giant is so cool. I love the castle up top. What really makes this for me is the time of year we're visiting. The fall foliage is incredible. Oranges, reds, yellows everywhere. Absolutely beautiful place. While we were up in Hamden, there happened to be an ice cream shop more or less on the way called Wentworth Homemade Ice Cream, so I figured that'd be the perfect treat to keep us going. So we found this ice cream shop. It was literally 5 minutes down the road from Sleeping Giant. Had very good reviews, so I got this raspberry chocolate chip, and it's awesome, and you should go. Last but certainly not least, let's head to East Rock Park, home of course to East Rock, which is undoubtedly the most iconic of the rock parks near New Haven. A big part of the reason being is that it's not exactly near it, it's basically inside of it. In fact, it's the only one of these three operated as a city park instead of a state park, with further significance being that the entire 427 acres is listed on the National Register of Historic Places for its various structures and buildings. Most notably, the Soldiers and Sailors Monument stands 122 feet tall and marks East Rock's summit, which we'd be hiking to for one of the most spectacular views in the area. Though it's important to note, every Sunday motor vehicles are allowed to drive up to the summit, making this feasible for anyone, regardless of if they're unable to hike or even walk. Personally, I'd prefer the walk though, especially this time of year as the bright autumn trees form almost a tunnel around the road. There's some openings in the trees along the way too, giving you an appetizer of what's to come, something that you completely miss if you drive up to the top. I especially loved what I kept calling the never-ending lakes below, even though it is just a river split up by patches of land. After walking the little over a mile it takes to get to the summit, you've got a stellar overlook from 366 feet awaiting you. Amazingly, this makes East Rock by far the shortest of the three rock parks, though you'd never know it from being up there, seeing as it's the most expansive and unobstructed of them all. I actually loved getting beneath the viewing platforms because then you see the steep rock face, which transitions into trees as it makes its way to the river and valley below. This is also the only one of the three rock parks where you can look out and see the two others from the main observation point, not to mention the skyline of New Haven, which feels so close you can almost touch it. East Rock Park is definitely the most iconic of all these spots that I've highlighted today, and I would also say it has the best individual viewpoint. This is absolutely amazing as you get to see the skyline of New Haven, all the trees below, just absolutely stunning, so really enjoy this place. One more thing to point out about East Rock is it's not as simple as the others to get base views, as trees partially block the formation in areas that otherwise would have been great opportunities to do so. Still, if you were to attempt to see it from below, I'd suggest College Woods, a small public park protected within East Rock Park itself. Otherwise, the best views are always going to be seen while riding along highways in and around New Haven, and I'm not going to suggest you get into a car accident just to get glimpses of this thing. In any case, to conclude the video, I'm now going to be comparing each of the three rock parks, discussing their pros and cons, and then stating which I think is the best. Going in order, West Rock is pretty cool for the state park it's in, offering a great variety of things to do and see. It's got the best base view for sure, it's the only rock park with lakes, but it might be my least favorite of the main overlooks just by a hair. Sleeping Giant is fascinating in that the formation itself has such a distinct shape, and I love the tower found here as well. And at least during the time of year we visited, it easily had the most impressive fall foliage, so that's gotta be good for something too. East Rock is probably my top choice if you're looking to kill a few hours, as it's so close to the city center, has a pleasant walk or drive up to the top, and then my favorite vista from any of the rock parks. Subjectively, I might rank that one as number one, but objectively it's hard to argue that the pros of East Rock can trump the sheer versatility of West Rock Ridge State Park. So in my opinion, it really comes down to what you're looking for while in the area, but if you have the ability to go to all three across a number of days, that would be a great way to appreciate the natural advantages of New Haven, Connecticut. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Travel Dash for more content like this in the future, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.